Good evening, all of you. So, in our previous class, we are going to discuss about dictionaries, tuples, and sets. Now, in this today class, we will going to discuss about object-oriented programming. So, we will going to discuss today about object-oriented programming in Python. So, these are the major principles of object-oriented programming in Python or C++ and Java. So that is about a class, object, what is a class, object, methods, inheritance, polymorphism, data abstraction and encapsulations. So these are the major principles of the object-oriented programming. So we'll go and discuss one by one principles of the object-oriented programming. So first of all, what is a class? So a class is a collection of objects. A class is a collection of objects, or a class is a collection of attributes and methods in a single unit. So class is a collection of attributes or variables and methods in a single unit is called as a class. So for example, you know the class diagram. So you know the class diagram. For representation of a class diagram will be like this, and it contain a class. So it contain a keyword class and followed by class name. So the class name is always, it is a object name. So that is a, let us take a student. So student is object, and it contain a number of variables. So the class contain group of or collection of variables, and it contain methods, collection of methods. So a class is a collection of methods or attributes or variables. So class is a collection of variables or attributes and methods is called as a class. So this is a syntax for writing of a class in Python. So you have to use a class keyword and followed by class name. So the class name is always object, like as a student, and followed by colon, and you have to write the number of statements inside the class. So what is the difference between a class and a structure? So what is the difference between a class and structure? So structure is a keyword and a class is a keyword. Structure is a keyword and class is a keyword. And one more difference is that the structure by default public access specifiers. So by default the structure members are public access specifiers. So whereas a class is a by default it is a protected. So it is a protected or it is a private members. So structure is a public access specifier and a class is a private access specifiers by default. So that's why when compared to structure and class, so the structure is not going to provide a more security to the data. So why? Because it is a public access specifier, whereas a class is going to provide a more security. So why? Because it is a private access specifier. It will going to use the private access specifier. So that's why when compared to structure, the class is going to provide more security to the data. So that is about a class and structure. So that is the difference here. So in the Python you have to use a keyword class and followed by class name and followed by colon and followed by you have to write the attributes or variables and methods in the class. And the second one is object. What is an object? So object is a real world entity. So object is a real world entity is called as an object, or an instance of a class is called as an object. So for example, the real world objects or entities are like a keyboard or mouse, chair, table and pen. So all will be comes under objects. So the real world entity or the real world object is called as a object, or the instance of the class is called as a object. So when you define a class, it needs to create an object. That is, you have to create an object and to allocate the memory for that variables or objects. So when you have to define a class, we should create an object. So by using that object, you have to access the methods in a class, and also you have to allocate the memory space for the variables. So for example, so the so the class syntax is in Python is a class, and followed by class name is a car, and followed by colon. So in C++, you have to use open and closing curly brackets. So instead of that, you have to use here colon. So a class followed by object name is a car, and followed by colon, and you have to define the variables in the class. So by using a constructor. So here you have underscore init underscore is a constructor name. So constructor name. So or it is going to initialize the class, and it will go to allocate the memory for the variables. So what is a constructor? So according to the C++ and Java, so the constructor name is same as a class name. So the constructor name is same as a class name, so it's called as a constructor. So whereas in Python it will be different. So here the constructor is underscore init underscore is a constructor. So by using that constructor, it will going to create the objects, and after that it will going to allocate the memory for the variables. So and also you have to pass the first argument is called as a self argument. So what is a self argument? It is a instance of the class. So the current instance of the class can be called as a self, that will be indicated as a self parameter. So you can write uh, self as a first parameter. You can write the self as a first parameter, or you can write in the place of self you have to pass another argument also. So that is your wish. You can place in the place of self argument, you can write your own argument also, but that argument must be in first only. So the first, in the place of self you have tried some other argument like nk. So I'm going to passing a argument is nk. So that argument must be in first argument only. You don't write as a second argument or third argument. So you can replace this self as a nk, that will be possible, but that replaced argument must be in first argument only. So that is a point you have to remember here. So by using underscore init underscore method, you have to create a objects and allocate the memory for the variables. So here the variables are model name and year. So model name and year are attributes or variables in the class. So if you want to access these variables and in a class, you have to use a self and followed by dot operator and followed by model name. So model name is equal to model name. So like that you need to initialize the variables in the class, and the self dot year equal to year. And similarly, you have to define the function in Python by using a def keyword. So def and followed by display. So display and followed by self is a starting argument. And by using that self argument, I'm going to access the variables in the class like model name and year. So for accessing of a model name and year, you have to write printf or print self dot model name comma self dot year. And finally you have to create an object for the car. So car, here car is a class name, so you have to create a object for that class. So here car, the object name is a c1, and I'm passing two arguments, that is a model name is Toyota and year is 2016. And I'm going to access the display function in my class by using a object name c1 dot and followed by display. Then it will go and display model name and year of the car. So that is about a class. So any doubts after any doubts in this example? So do you have any doubts in this example? So if you have any doubts, please post your query in the chat box. So that is about a class, and here underscore init is a like as a constructor, and which will be used to create objects and allocate the memory for these variables. So next one is a method. So what is a method? So for example, what is a function or method? So a method is a block of code or a collection of statements or set of code together to perform a particular certain task or operations. So what is a method? So any object type can have a methods. So any object like a car. So previously I'm using a object is called display, or sorry, a method name is called display. So that is a method. So for any object, so for any object, so for any object it contain. So for any object type can have a methods. And what is a method? Method is a block of code or collection of statements or set of code together to perform a certain task or operations. And also this will be achieve the reusability of the code. So next one is the inheritance. What is inheritance? So deriving a new class from an existing class is called as a inheritance. So deriving a new class from an existing class is called as a inheritance. So for example, you have to also define another definition like defining a class that inherit all the methods and properties from another class. So that is called deriving a new class. So while deriving a new class, you have to deriving methods and properties of another class. So that is called as inheritance. So the definition will be common for C++ and Java. In Python also same definition. So deriving a new class from an existing class is called as a inheritance. And here you have to use parent class and child class. That is called uh, the the first class is called as a new class or parent class. So from that class you have to derive a one new class or a child class. So it is a base class. So it can be called as a base class, and it can be called as a subclass. So the base class can be called as a parent class, and the subclass can be called as a child class, and the base class or parent class can be called as a existing class also. So can called as a existing class. So from that existing class you have to derive a new class. So these all will be a different names for and also it can be called as a super class also. So the existing class is called as a super class, and the new class can be called as a subclass. So base class or a parent class or a child class. So these are the number of names for that class names. So deriving a new class from an existing class or deriving a child class from an parent class is called as an inheritance. So in this example I am taking a one existing class that is called person. Person is existing class, and it contain variables, and it contain method. And now I'm going to create a new class that is called student. So this student is going to derived from the existing class that is called person. So you have to write in Python class and followed by subclass name or new class name. So in this example the new class name is called student, and that student will be derived from existing class is called person. So whereas in other languages you have to use extend keyword. So by using extend keyword you have to derive a new class from an existing class. So whereas in Python you have to use a class and followed by a new class or a derived class name and followed by base class or super class name and colon, and you have to write nothing. If you don't want to write any variables or methods in that subclass, then you have to pass simply you have to write simply keyword pass statement. So that is nothing but you are not interested to write the variables and methods in this subclass. So that is the meaning for pass statements. And after that I'm going to create the object for student, and I'm going to assign the value for first name as a Hari and the last name as a Kumar. So then I want access by using a X variable and followed by dot operator. I want access a print name. So then it will go and print first name and last name. So we'll get the output is Hari and Kumar. So Hari is a first name and Kumar is a last name. So deriving a new class from an existing class is called as a inheritance. So what is a polymorphism? So it contains two words, poly and morphism. So poly means many and morphism means shapes, many forms. So that means the function can be going to acting as a different ways. So the function is going to acting as a different ways, or the task can be performed in different ways. So one task can be performed in different ways is called as a polymorphism. So next one is encapsulation. So what is encapsulation? So wrapping. So wrapping of variables and methods in a single unit is called as a encapsulation. So wrapping or binding of attributes and methods in a single unit is called as a encapsulation. And what is a data abstraction? So the data abstraction is nothing but it will go to hide the internal details and showing the functionality of the it will showing the functionality. So it will go to hide the internal details, but it will showing the uh, main details. Like for example, if you take a ATM, so the ATM, once you can insert your card and select the withdrawal option, so then they will then you don't know how the money will be coming out from that machine. So that means just you have to insert the card and will get the money from that ATM machine. So that is called hiding the internal details and showing the functionality. So is called as a abstraction. So this is the difference between object-oriented and procedure-oriented programming language. So in object-oriented programming, program is divided into classes and objects. So whereas in procedural-oriented programming, you have to divide the program into functions. And the object-oriented programming will be mainly deal with data, whereas procedure programming will be mainly deal with algorithms or functions. So next one, it needs a less memory and it needs a more memory. So it is a bottom up approach and it is a top down approach, and it does not have access specifiers, and it has a access specifiers like public, private and protected, and the data is secure in OOP, and the data is not secured in process oriented programming. So more reusability of the code and less reusability of the code. So this is about difference between object oriented programming and procedural programming language. So now coming into class and object. What is a class? I said that class is a collection of variables and methods. So collection of variables and methods is called as a class. So what is the object? So the instance of a class. The instance of a class is called as a object. So you know that I said that already, class and structure. So class and structure. The main difference between class and structure is that by default the structure members are public access specifiers, and whereas the class members are private access specifiers. And by using a dot operator you will go to access the structure members. Similarly, by using a dot operator you have to access the class members or class variables or attributes. So that will be common. So next one is creating a classes in Python. How will going to create a classes in Python? So already you are I'm showing the previously. So by using a class keyword and followed by class name and followed by colon, you have to write the you have to create a classes in Python. So for example, I have to create a one class is called class and followed by employee colon and ID. So ID is equal to 10 and name is equal to Devansh, and these are the variables in a class. And the method is by using a def keyword you have to define the methods, in a class. So the method name is display and followed by self as a argument. Uh, by using that self argument, you have to access self.id and self.name. Then it will go display id is equal to 10 and Devansh name is equal to Devansh. And what is a self parameter? I already said that self parameter is refer to the current instance of the class. So the self parameter refers to the current instance of the class, and you can use anything instead of the self. So you can use a instead of argument self, you can use any other argument also, but it should be the first parameter. So in the place of self, you have to use some other argument also, but that argument must be available first as a first parameter, first argument in the function. So otherwise, it will go and produce the error. So this is an example. So simple example for ID, name. These are the variables and a function. And I want access or I want to create a object for the class name, that is employee. So the object name is EMP. By using that object, I'm going to access the methods in a class. So these accessing and creating of objects will be same as a C++ and Java also. And next one is a delete objects. So it can be possible to delete objects in C++ as well as Java also. So for example, class ID is equal to 10 and name is equal to John. So these are the variables in a class employee, and method is display, and I want display or I want access ID and name by using a self parameter. And after that, I'm going to create object for the employee class. So now I'm going to delete del by using a del keyword. I'm going to delete emp dot followed by id. So I'm going to delete the id in a employee class. So now after that, after deleting emp dot id, now I'm going to delete entire object. So it is a deleting of a variables or properties in a class, and this will be this statement will be deleting the entire objects. So I want delete entire objects. So that can be also possible. And after that, if you try to display, then we will get some errors. So why? Because uh, you are deleted the attribute id, that is a 10, and you are delete the entire object of the employee class. So if you are trying to display, then it will go on showing some errors in the class. So up to now, do you have any doubts? So if you have any doubts, please post your query in the chat box. So now let us see the constructor. So what is a constructor? So as I said, that constructor can be created in Python by using a underscore underscore init. So by using underscore underscore init underscore underscore method or function. So by using that constructor, you have to initialize the objects, or you have to create objects, and you can allocate the memory for the objects. So I already said that constructor is a special type of method. So it can be used to initialize the members of the class. So by using a underscore underscore init underscore underscore method or function, we can initialize the members of the class, as well as we have to create a objects for the class also. So whereas in the C++ and the Java, the constructor has the same name as the constructor has the same name as its class. That is called, the class name is same as a constructor name. So in a C++ and Java, the class name is the same as a constructor name. And C++ and Java also, the constructor is used for to assign the values to the variables, as well as you can create objects, as well as you can allocate the memory for the objects. So that will be same in Python also. But the difference is that The difference is that for creating a constructor in Python, you have to use underscore underscore init underscore underscore function or method. So whereas in C++ and Java, you have to use a class name as a function name or function name as a class name. So that is called as a constructor. So we have a different types of constructor like as a C++ and Java, like parameters constructor and non-parameter constructor and default constructors. So I said that how to create a constructor in Python by using a underscore underscore init underscore underscore method. So by using that method, you have to create a constructor in Python, and also you have to pass and this init function or method, it will be accept the self keyword as a first argument. So self keyword as a first argument, it will going to accept it. If you write self keyword as a second argument and a third argument, then it will go and produce the errors. So in the place of self, you have tried some other argument also. So that is your wish, but that first argument, that first argument can be a, write it in first only. So if you write in second place or third place, it will go and produce the errors. So this is an example. So in this example, the class name is employee and it is a constructor. So self is a first parameter and the second parameter is name and ID. And I'm going to initialize the by using a self argument. I'm going to initialize the ID values. So self.id is equal to ID, self.name equal to name. Or you have to write directly self.id is equal to 10, self.name is equal to followed by some name. So that will be also possible, and after that by using a def keyword I'm going to define the method or function. So the function name is display, and I want display the self dot id and self dot name. So this is one of the format way you have to print the id and the names. And after that I'm going to create a object for the employee. So that is a emp1, so it is the object name, and I am passing the two arguments, name is equal to John and ID is equal to 101. And also you have to create a one more, you have to create any number of objects for the same class. So here I am going to create a another object, so emp2. So emp2 is equal to employee and followed by name and 102. So you have to create any number of objects in Python, and after that I'm going to use emp1 dot followed by dot operator. I'm going to access the display method, and similarly I'm going to access emp2 dot display. So then it will going to produce the output is so id is 101, name is John, id is 102, and the name is David. So that is the output for the given example. And counting number of objects of a class, so that can be also possible. I will go and count the number of objects in a class. So by using a constructor, is called automatically you can create the objects of the class. So here I'm going to create an object for student is S1, S2 and S3. I'm going to create three objects. Then it will go and give the number of objects created for the student class is 3. So that is about counting the number of objects of the class. So we'll go discuss uh, parameters constructor, parameter constructor, and a default constructor in the next class. So up to now, if you have any doubts, you can ask me. So that's all about today class. So I will going to discuss the next class about parameter constructor, default constructor, and non-parameter constructors. So that's all about today class, and I will go and meet in the next session. Thank you.